Happy Sunday. Had my pancakes, watched my Yogi Bear, ready to talk AOS. Let's look at AOS 4 Battleplans. Art by Goblin Town. This is the first guy who let me use his art for the channel. These cruel boys in the swampy water. Absolutely phenomenal. Thanks to my Kill Boss patron Panda. Wyberian makes good art. Link to Instagram below. If you're going to buy some dice, you might as well use code MDG and buy it through Baron of Dice. Buy some dice. Okay, so in this from the Warhammer community website from a few days ago, they detailed a few different kinds of battle plans. So first we're going to look at the core rulebook ones, and we're going to keep in mind that this is going to be where new players are going to start in. So quote, First Blood has a choice of 3 battle plans for games that last 4 battle rounds. So if you're a brand new player, you only have to play 4 battle rounds. That's okay. That's fine. You'll need to score more victory points than your opponent to win, and the scoring here is simple. At the end of their turn, a player scores 2 points for holding 1 objective, 2 further points for holding 2 or more objectives, another 2 points for holding more objectives than your opponent, and 4 if they score their battle tactic. So here we are. 1, 2 more tactic, but all of the points have been doubled. It's 2 for objectives, and it's 4 for battle tactics. Oh, sure. I think that this is fine. I don't really know what to say about this in particular because I think it just means that they're 50-point maps, and I kind of feel like that's a good way to do it, where if they're all kind of uniform, where if every battle plan that you play on has a potential to get 50 points, right? Except for, I guess, these 4-round ones where it's only 40 points. But seems fine to me. In the First Blood battle pack, each opponent comes with a different objective layout and a unique twist, a rule that can alter how you score victory points, provide the underdog, the player with fewer victory points at the start of the round, with a boon, or both. In the Stake a Claim battle plan, for example, the twist allows the underdog to choose an objective and to prevent it from being controlled for a round. So let's look. So this is the First Blood battle pack. Or at least it's Battle Plan 2 of the First Blood Battle Pack. Stake a Claim. So it's it's fine. It's got 5 objectives. You have to also remember here that these objectives are not these 12-inch diameter bubbles. They are instead a 40-millimeter base with a 3-inch bubble, if I remember, around it. So they're quite a bit smaller. Right? They're quite a bit smaller. So it's going to be 6 inches, like in diameter, it's going to be 6 inches plus 40 millimeter, and 40 millimeters is 1.5 inches. So instead of it being 12 inches, it's going to be like 7.5 inches. So they're going to be smaller. So they're going to be taking up less space on the battlefield. Okay, so pretty standard thing here. But the twist, at the start of the battle round, so at the start of every battle round, I guess it doesn't say before or after priority has been rolled, but I think that rule is going to be included in like what it means to start a round or whatever. If there is an underdog, they can pick one objective. That objective is no longer controlled by either player and cannot be controlled this battle round. It's cool. So I like this. I like this. I like the idea that if there's an underdog, that they get like some kind of benefit here. Like I kind of like this. I think we'll see how it actually plays out on the table, but so far I'm thinking that it's a good thing. So they get to essentially null an objective. So let's say that it's Red's turn and Red goes first. Okay, well, control 1, control 2, control more tactic. Fine, they get their 10 points, and then it's Blue's turn. Control 1, control 2. They don't control more, and they get their tactic. So then we roll off. And then let's say it's Red. Red wins the roll off and they're going again. Well, it means that this blue player gets to pick one of the objectives to be canceled. So they'll probably pick one in Red's territory. So now for Red, they have to control 1, control 2, and if they want to control more, they're going to have to take one away from the underdog in this case. So let's say that they don't, right? Let's say that they don't, they just control these 3, but this one on the bottom right here is null. Then in the attack, and blue, when it's Blue's turn again, it's like control 1, control 2, control more, tactic. They're back on even footing, right? It's like, if you're gonna, So I think that the incentive then is to definitely try to score. Like, it's going to be interesting, right? Because, like, okay, so if you're red and you're like, well, I'm going first. Well, I want to score my maximum points, right? It would make no sense to try to go under. At least that's my first thought. And then it's blue's turn. So then blue is like, well, like, I have a choice as the blue player now. I can try to take the middle objective back and score as many points as my opponent, and then just in an attempt to score as many points as possible, right? And then we enter into the next round where we're on even footing and there is no underdog and we carry on. Or I can be more conservative and try not to score my full 5 points, or like not potentially overextend myself in an attempt to get all my points. So I'm just going to accept that I'm going to only score 8 points this turn, and I'm going to enter into the next round as the underdog and eliminating one of these corners off the battlefield. To me, at least without having actually played it, it sounds like it's a good idea, that the underdog mechanic is a good idea. It's not just like, oh, the person that's losing gets to come back. It's more like both players have this other mechanic that they have to think about while playing. And so going first, going second, like how many points you actually score in a round matters. It's not just like, oh, I there's no reason for me not to score max points. So then if you're the blue player, you're like, well, I could take back the middle, but it's going to be risky, and I put myself in a bad position if I do that. Like, I expose myself to my opponent's shooting or their magic if I try to do that. And then you also think about the double turn and what that might mean for the next round. And then you can say, okay, well, you know what? Instead, I'm going to position myself to be doubled, right? And to be the underdog. Because if you're going second, you can end your turn, you can plan your turn around being the underdog, right? Because you have the information. The red player already took their turn and they've already scored their points. So I don't know, like it's interesting to me, and I think it's going to be one of those high skill testing or skill expression mechanics in this game. I think so. I have a good feeling about it. Okay, so the first General's Handbook is coming out immediately with 4th edition. 4th edition starts with a GHB. I'm a little bit surprised by this. I thought that they would do a year of just 4th edition and just talk about 4th and get 4th good and ready. But it sounds to me like basically these are the matched play plans. So we'll see what the seasonal rules are like for the first season. Like, what do you do? How do you write seasonal rules for a game that hasn't even been play tested yet? Like, I'm genuinely super curious what they're going to be. So, can't wait to find out. But they're coming immediately. So here's, I can't remember the name of this one here, but you can see here that it's just this very standard 4 objective battle plan. So it's called, I call them maps. So this one's called Border War. So there's a twist. So add 1 to hit rolls, so all out attack, for units in the underdog's army. Okay, so if you're the underdog, you can get a table-wide +1 to hit if they charge this turn and are contesting an objective wholly within enemy territory. Okay, so if you're the underdog and you're charging into your opponent's, wholly within your opponent's territory, right? Wholly within, so there's only this one objective. So if you're the underdog and you charge onto your opponent's objective, you get +1 to hit. You get a free all-out attack. Yeah. So, interesting. Let's keep reading. Each player scores victory points at the end of each round as follows. Or at the end of each turn. Score 1 victory point if you control the objective wholly within friendly territory. Okay, score 2 victory points for each objective on the border of friendly territory that you control, and score 5 victory points if you control the objective wholly within enemy territory, and score 4 victory points if you complete the battle tactic that you chose. So it's So so for the blue player, this is worth 1. These are both worth 2, and this one is worth 5. Which means if you control your territory and you control the 2 side territories, you get 5 points. I guess they're not all standard 50. Which is, well, we should talk about that here in a sec. But it looks like so 4 for the tactic, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. And then if you control this one, it's 5. So it's very interesting, actually, because you could sort of like go all in and just try to take this one, so you just score as many points as possible. Like if you're like an army like Stormcast Eternals, or you have a really high mobility like Ironjaws, or you Deep Striker, if you have some kind of control mechanic that's going to let you take it over, like, I don't know, if you're like Gargants or something, maybe you can just like rush into their territory and take their objective. But it creates a really interesting dynamic playing field where, like, if you're the underdog and you charge, you get, you know, a free all-out attack, and so you're going to do that with like 4 different units, and they're all going to get +1 to hit, right? It's like really interesting, and I think it's cool, and I like it. And that's only if you're the underdog. So you could see how players in this one would be like, okay, well, I'm going to try to like be the underdog in turn 2, because my strategy at the start of 2 is to try to take over this objective. And then you get into some interesting headspaces where you're like, well, do I want to be really low drops if that's kind of what I'm going for? Like, you can see that just like it's adding some complexity and some thought, and I like it. I'm a big fan. I like where this is headed. Yep. GHB battle plans. So again, this is quoted from the Warhammer community website. Quote, the underdog earns a little more bite when they attempt to contest the enemy's home objective, and caps the scoring from objectives at 6 per turn. Or I must have missed that. Because I was, in my head, I'm like thinking like, okay, that was definitely something that I read. Oh, I guess it's not. I guess I clipped it off or something. Oh no, it says right here. Sorry, I thought this was flavor text for some reason. So the twist here says victory points scored by each player from controlling objectives are capped to a maximum of 6 per turn. So it means that if you control your territory and your opponent's home territory, these two, that's 6 points, and that's the maximum you can get. And if you control like the triangle of yours and the ones in the middle, it's 5. So you can't like control all of them. So if you take the one in your opponent's territory, then you don't really get the benefit of the ones on the side. Right, because if you have like one on the side and one in your enemy's territory, that's 7, and so you only get 6. So interesting. I guess that kind of prevents you from running away with the game, right? Or tabling your opponent and getting like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 around or whatever, right? So interesting. I really like it. Okay, battle tactics score 4 victory points in every battle plan here. This new scoring split makes battle tactics very important, so taking priority for double turns becomes an even tougher decision. Because, right, if you take a double turn, you can't score a tactic. So on this map, it's like you can get a maximum of 6 from objectives, but more likely it'll be 5 and 4 from your battle tactics. So if you take a double turn, it's like you're giving up a large percentage of your points. And again, I like this too. Right, I like this too. It's like it's a lot more of that skill expression for better players, where it's like, when do you take the double turn, and what does it mean to double turn? Like, if you go into a double turn, how do you need to end your double turn? Because you're losing those 4 points, right? And like, are you going to put your opponent in a position where they're going to want to double turn you back? Because it's, for me anyway, the interesting part of the double turn isn't necessarily the actual taking of the double turn. It's the fact that you hold that threat over your opponent's head over the course of the game. So right now, in Age of Sigmar 3, when I play Big Wa, okay, I often am made to go first, because I have 14, 15 drops in my Big Wa list, which means I prep for the double turn and I play defensively until I get doubled. And I'm really happy when my opponent doubles me right away. In fact, I will often let my opponent double turn me on turn 2. If I win the priority roll, right, because Ty would go to me for the first priority roll for at the beginning of round 2, right? Because my opponent made me go first, so Ty goes to me. I will often let my opponent double me so that I can then turn around and be prepared to double them back to round 3, round 4 when it matters. So in Age of Sigmar 4, the fact that you lose your battle tactic, it's like, well, you can play around with that idea of initiative and who gets to take the next double turn. So it's like, do you take it early and forfeit 4 points, but then put your opponent in such a bad position that you know that they're definitely going to double you back and forfeit those 4 points as well, right? Like, to me, that's going to be really interesting, and I can't wait to sink my teeth into this edition and try it out. But I hope I'm making myself clear, though. I think you guys know. I think you guys understand me. Okay, so here's another example of a battle plan. So you can see here in the 4 corners, there's 4 objectives, and then they all move into the center where they create 1 objective in the middle, right? So they start off on the 4 sides. This is called the Vice. So twist. At the start of the second battle round, after determining which player is the active player must remove the 4 starting objectives and set up a new objective at each of the next locations shown on the map. So this is round 1, this is round 2, I guess this is round 3. So the twist is just, the first paragraph is just saying who actually moves the objectives, but no decisions have been made so far. At the start of the 4th battle round, after determining which player is the active player must remove the 4 objectives and set up 1 new objective in the location shown at the center of the map. So again, this twist is just saying that the objectives move in to the center, and it just says like which player is actually doing it, but again, no choices have been made by either player. At the end of their turn, the underdog can pick 1 objective, inflict D3 mortal wounds on each unit contesting that objective. Each player scores, okay, so whatever. The underdog deals D3 mortal wounds to everything that's on an objective. Okay. Like, sure. So you have to kind of think carefully about who's contesting. That seems fine. Right? It can actually turn into quite a lot of mortal wounds if you're not careful, but it's relatively easy to play around. You just need to make sure that when you have your home objectives that you're not stacking everything on them, right? That you're holding them and playing, but not with, your wizards and your wounded things and such, right? Each player scores victory points at the end of each of their turns as follows. Score 2 victory points if you control at least 1 objective. Score 2 victory points if you control 2 or more objectives. Score 2 victory points if you control more objectives than your opponent. Okay, control 1, control 2, control more. That's fine. In battle round 4 and 5 only, score 2 victory points if there are no enemy units within 6 inches of the remaining objective. Score 4 victory points if you complete your battle tactic. So it's control 1, control 2, control more, and then those are for the first 3 turns. And then in battle round 4 and 5, it's control 1, and then it's automatically control more, and then you score 2 victory points as if you have no enemies within 6 inches of the remaining objective. So instead of control 1, control 2, control more, it's like control 1/more for 4 points, and then 2 if you really control it, if you've pushed your opponent away from it. Cool. Looks fine to me, man. Looks pretty straightforward. To me, this is just like, okay, there's moving objectives, control 1, control 2, control more, with a little twist at the very end a little twist at the very end there. Cool, looks good. This is really interesting to me, though. So this map layout can also be used for Border Wars, Focal Point Shifting Objectives, the Jaws of Gallet, and Battle for the Pass. So it's got different terrains and what they are. Like, here, I'll show you the next one. It has suggested terrain location and size and type. This is great. I really like this. You see this at tournaments, and it's nice that they're just including it in the GHB. So there's area terrain or obstacles. So this just looks like regular terrain, small and medium. It looks like they give an example here, right? Hills, storm vaults, and it just gives cover. Awesome. Right, or obstacles, ruin, debris, statues, and it also has this other keyword called unstable. That's cool. So what, if you end within an inch, you roll the die, and on a whatever, you take some mortal wounds. That seems cool. Obscuring terrain, so small and medium again, so wildwoods, walls, So I guess obscuring is going to block line of sight. Or I guess the thing with Wildwoods is you can only see like 3 inches past it or something like that. So it'll have more to do with lines of sight and vision, right? Because things in cover you can still see. They just get a +1 to save, I think, right? And then they also have the unstable keyword. Maybe they don't all have these keywords. Maybe they have some of these keywords. Maybe these are example keywords that they could have. And then places of power. So these have the place of power terrain ability. So what would that be? Like +1 to cast, +1 to prayers, something like that, right? Because they casters and stuff have a power level. So you would think that places of power will affect the power level of units. So that's cool. Like I like this. I like this. It just means that it's a little bit more standardized, which is good. And then players that don't want to use it don't have to, and they can do whatever they like. Whatever they like. Seasonal rules. So again, this is directly quoted from the Warhammer community website. The season rules add extra nuance and theming to your games for the 2024-2025 season, which kicks off with the release of the new edition. The defining rule is Honor Guard. Okay. This rule lets you pick... So my guess is it's... my prediction for the season would have been they go fairly light on rules. This rule lets you pick from one of the 3 powerful abilities to give a single Honor Guard unit in your general's regiment. Since these abilities are chosen during the deployment phase, you can use them to adapt to your opponent's roster. I like this. I like choices that are made during deployment. That's why I feel like Dirty Tricks for Kruleboyz was such a miss, because it's like, oh, you pick this, like, you know, at the beginning of the battle round or whatever, or the beginning of the game. And it's like, cool, we could have had so many different options for how to deal with different armies, like how to best approach and mess with, like, oh, they're an Alpha Strike army, so -1 to hit the first battle round, or, Disappearing Act, or they're going to be like a really cagey castle army, and it's like, we should have been able to, like, reduce the shooting range of enemy units. We should have been able to maybe reduce the unbind range of enemies. We should have been able to do all kinds of things against different types of army, like horde armies, right? Like, oh, they're a horde army, so we pick this dirty trick, which means that they whatever, right? Like, because, or like the new Feck book, where how you get to pick the Grand Illusion at the start of the game. It's like, well, that's great. Like, I like things like that. It just means that all the armies are more flexible against who they're going up against. So, I mean, like, I don't know. I like that idea. So I like this idea that there's a few different powerful abilities that you can choose from. So, quoting again, the General's Handbook 2024-2025 found in the impending launch box comes in a card format featuring seasonal rules, battle tactics, battle plans, and scoring cards in a handy format. So, battle tactics are cards, right? I don't know. Maybe they're just like on the cards. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. So here's the rule: Honor Guard. So again, it's like, I think you can pick one of the rules, right? So Bodyguard is one of these. So once per battle in the deployment phase, declare, pick a friendly unit in your general's regiment that is not your general to be the Honor Guard. You can pick a unit in reserve. If you use this ability, you cannot use any other Honor Guard abilities. Right, so you pick one on Honor Guard ability. Effect: subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of enemy units' melee weapons while they are in combat with your general if both of the following are true. The Honor Guard is wholly within 6 inches of your general. Okay, the Honor Guard did not charge this turn. So if the Honor Guard's hanging out and wholly within 6, they get -1 attacks, which is a really powerful debuff. Right, it's a very powerful debuff. Either it's like if it's up against like a horde and they have 2 attacks each, right? Or like just against any kind of infantry unit, you're effectively reducing their potential damage output by half, which is a huge percentage. If you're throwing, let's say you just have like 10 Kruleboyz or something, you're going from 21 dice to 11 dice. Like, that's a huge reduction in the potential damage, right? And then if it's a hero, the heroes will often have like multiple profiles. So you can imagine something like Gobsprak, where it's like, okay, you got the staff, the beak, the talons, the stinger, and the companion. Well, -1 attacks from all of those is pretty strong, right? Same thing with like Gargants, like -1 attack from every profile on a Mega Gargant can actually add up like to a lot of dice, to a large percentage of their dice. So, and then it's like bad against things like, or not as good, I should say, against things like, you know, a Mega Boss on foot, where it's like, well, I just have 8 attacks. I have 1 profile and it's 8 attacks. So I'm reducing just 1 out of 8, which is a small percentage reduction. So, but this is cool. I like this. But yeah, tell me what you think about the about all these changes, about all this potential stuff. Battle tactics are a contentious point, I feel, right now. I think that people were expecting more to happen with battle tactics, but we'll have to check out. You'll have to check out my next video on battle tactics and see what we're thinking. Till then, like, subscribe. Wow.